Hi, this is Mr. Daggett, and I'm going to talk today about what you need to do for Module 1.1.6. If you look in the module for 1.1.6, it calls for you to use a photo manipulation program that's web-based and it's free. It's called GIMP. But since at our school we're fortunate enough to have Adobe Creative Suite 6, we're going to use Photoshop instead. So what we're going to do is go get an image from somewhere. It can be an image from the web, or I've got an image here that I pulled from my phone. And this is a picture of my daughter, Lauren, dancing at a wedding reception. And I intentionally picked this image because the edges are, since it's a motion shot, the edges are a little bit fuzzy, and it makes it a little bit more challenging to knock out the background of the image, which is the goal for this module. So once you have your image, you need to get it into Photoshop. So I'm going to go to my Windows Start button and start typing ADO for Adobe. And Photoshop is right here. And I've already got it open. If you need to get yours into Photoshop, you can go to File, Open, and then go find that image. Mine's on the desktop, so it's right here. Or you can, from the image, if it's on your desktop, just take it and drop it into Photoshop. And I'm not going to do that since I've already got it in there. There we go, don't place. So as I said, the goal for this module is to knock the background out of an image that you're going to use to create a sprite that will be used in 1.1.7. And I'm just going to show you really quickly how you can do that. And it's all about making selections. So let me talk really quickly about selections. If I go click on the rectangular marquee tool and make a selection, I know it's selected because we get what are referred to in the design industry as these marching ants. So that's my area that's been selected. I can do a few different things with that. Right now I'm on my background layer. I can hit Control J to copy that to a new layer. And what I get are these gray and white checkered squares. And that's how I know that the background is clear. That's how Photoshop tells me that it's clear. So I'm going to go ahead and get rid of that layer. And so the first thing that I'm going to do, and this is just good practice when you're working with Photoshop, start on your background layer and copy that by hitting Control J, copy that to a new layer. That way, if I screw up this layer too badly, I can always get back to my original. So my layer that I copied is exactly that. It's an exact copy of my background layer. And that's the one that I'm going to manipulate. So the goal of this is to knock out the background. So I could make a rectangular selection, but it's not very close to my image. I really want to get rid of these spaces in between here. So I could use, I've got a few options. I could use the lasso tool. And if I zoom in by hitting Control plus, I can attempt to draw around my image. But if you're like me, your hand's probably not very steady, and you end up with kind of a sloppy selection. So that's not a very good option. So I'm going to hit Control D to deselect. Another option that I could use is the Magic Wand tool to make a selection. And so what the Magic Wand tool does is it, if you click on a pixel in your image, it looks at pixels that have the same color and attempts to select those. So if I click right here, it does a pretty good job of selecting similar pixels, but it looks like her leg is about the same color as the floor. So if I hit delete or backspace to clear that, let me get rid of my background layer, it also knocks the portion of her leg that has a similar color out of that image as well. So that's not a very good option either. So let me go back in my history a couple of steps. And I'm going to show you what I think is the best option for making a selection, and it's called the polygonal lasso tool. And so unlike the normal lasso tool, what it allows me to do is, get rid of this, I can kind of draw points around a image to make a selection. So I'm going to zoom in, and when you're doing this, you really want to be careful to make a nice selection that's tight to your image. I'm just going to make a really quick one. Okay. And let's just say I've selected the area that I want to select. When I get back to where I started, you'll notice, let's see, I must have passed it there. Try that again. So let's say I've selected the area that I want. When I get back to where I started, my tool has a little circle next to it, and that indicates that I'm about to close a selection. Okay. If I want to add to my selection, I've still got my polygonal lasso tool. I can hold down the Shift key while I'm clicking, and that will add to my selection. If I accidentally selected an area I didn't want to, like let's say I got part of this background, and I want to subtract from my selection, well, that's easy enough too. I just hold down the Alt key while I'm making my selection, and it will subtract. And I know that because I've got a little minus icon next to my tool, and it will subtract that area from my selection. Okay. So really take your time and make a nice tight selection. I've got one that I've already saved as a path. So there's my selection that I've made. If I go back to my layers, if I delete this portion, hide that background again, you see it knocked out the image that I wanted to keep. So let me go back in my history one or two, and I'm going to hit Control-Shift-I to select the inverse of that selection. And I can hit the backspace key to delete that. And that does a pretty good job of knocking out the background. A couple more options I wanted to make you aware of. Let me hide that background again. You can modify your selection if you go to Select and Modify. Right here, you can go to Feather. And about 1.5 or 2 pixels is usually a pretty good option for feathering. And then, if you notice, I kind of get some softened edges. So it does exactly that. It kind of feathers out those hard edges. Once you have cropped out your background, you can Control-click on your layer and then go to Image, Crop. Okay, I'm going to toss my background now that I'm done with that. And I'm also going to get rid of you won't have an alpha channel, but I'm going to get rid of mine. And then I'm going to go to File, Save for Web. Okay. And you want to make sure that this box up here is checked to keep that transparent layer. So, mine's hidden here. Okay, I can click on, if I can get to it, I can click on Save. It'll ask me where I want to save it. And I'm going to call this one something meaningful like Lauren 1. And save it to my desktop. And so that way I can get rid of a background from an image and save it as a transparent layer. And we're going to do that and save that in 1.1.6 to use in 1.1.7. Thanks for watching.